Hey Will, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Cynthia. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm excited to do this first podcast with you.
Excellent.
And
I'm
so,
excited as well.
okay, awesome. What do you think we should talk about today?
Well, it seems like we're in another phase of shifts in the workforce with people returning to work, hybrid environments, all sorts of things happening out there. I've been seeing a lot of posts around anxiety, mental health, around, managers being the first to be stressed or under-resourced and are a big group that are seeking new employment. Since your ear is much closer to the clients, what are you hearing from those individuals and leaders these days?
Well, I'm actually hearing very similar. I'm reading similar to what you're reading. I'm hearing from my clients and from the community about how, although the phase of going to leave the office back in March of 2020 to work out of their home, this return has been anything but easy or smooth. It's had its own issues and its own difficulties. What I'm learning from the data and the conversation with my clients is there's a lot of issues around the feelings index. That's what I'm seeing. And I thought maybe we could talk about that feelings index just to put a finer point on how important that particular aspect of the assessment is.
Absolutely. So I know feelings index is one of your favorite parts of the assessment when you're thinking about culture, well-being, and anxiety. One, you can look at the feelings across an entire organization, but you also can look at the different role comparisons, which are team members, managers, and leaders. Because we can see those different roles, is there anything that surprises you about what you've observed so far?
I will tell you that, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't get too surprised too often, but I did have one client that I do want to share some learning points, just some things to think about. Yes, I love the role comparison part because we can see the three different segments and how they're feeling. Are they connecting or are they distancing, and to what degree? So frequently, clients will ask me, well, what is a good connecting score? What percentage is a good? And I say, you know what, I try not to put a number on that, but the higher the connecting score, the better it is for the organization. It's easier to lead change. It's easier to experience growth. But I would say in general, you want it to be above 60. And again, the higher the connecting metrics, the better it is. But I will tell you a story about a client I've had as a learning story, as a learning lesson, so to speak. The first month that I had the client, things looked pretty okay, and it is an organization of under 30 people. Things looked pretty okay. I felt like anxiety was just a tiny bit high, but nothing to be too concerned with. The second month we came along, that anxiety level jumped again. And what was interesting was the difference between the metrics between the team members and the managers was quite large, that difference between those two. So you step back and you say, okay, I'm not trying to bring my own bias in it, but the managers are the ones that are tasked with getting the job done. So I brought that up to the leader and I said, you may want to go back and kind of find out what's driving this anxiety score to go up or the feelings index to go down, the connecting score to go down and the distancing to go up. The leader also again said, oh, they felt they knew what was causing this, which again brings their own bias into it. So I said, let me tell you a story. If anxiety is climbing and it's climbing every month, it's like a little campfire, where if you have a little campfire and there's some embers burning, okay, you can manage that. But if you just step away from it for a while, you could come back and those embers could have gotten into dry brush and now you have a forest fire. That's what can happen with anxiety. So, keep your eye on it and you may want to dig in a bit more. That was the second month. The third month came along and I went to look at the statistics on the dashboard, and the managers were at a less than 40% connecting, while the previous month they were at 65, and the team members were at 100% disconnecting, distancing themselves. And I thought, okay, I've never really seen that before, but obviously we are now at a forest fire and not at a campfire level here.
Right.
So I asked her, I saw these statistics before I talked to her for that particular debrief. I'm using this as an example to say that feelings index is so critical, because the feelings index, which is what I said to the leader, is the feelings index is going down here to 40%. and to 0% because those team members are not feeling cared for. That's what the feelings index tells you. It tells you, do they feel connected to each other and to the organization? Or are they feeling distance from them? And the lower that feelings score goes, the more they're feeling not cared for, let's say. It may not be the truth, it may be something else, but we can't bring our own bias into it. And that's how I try to coach the leaders. Let's not bring the bias, let's go find out.
Right. Well, that sounds like a really difficult situation for a leader, Cynthia. And a lot of leaders don't speak to feelings or talk about anxiety, well-being, those pieces. I always like when you share about, the difference between compassion, empathy, listening, caring, because as a trusted advisor with a leader, you help guide them to help communicate that with their organization to improve not only the feelings, but the connectivity, those pieces. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, I've wanted to say this for a while. Yes, it's in a different arena when a leader needs to start talking about compassion and empathy. We see the word compassion quite a bit. There is a difference between the two. And the difference is empathy just speaks to the leader speaking to something or to someone, and they have had the experience that that person is relaying to them. Let's say they had a parent who died, or they had been fired from a job. That's what empathy is. That, okay, this happened to me also. Here's the type of thing I did. Compassion doesn't mean that the leader went through the same experience. They didn't have lose their job. They didn't have a parent that died, but they can certainly express care around someone who did. And they can take an action to show that person that they care. So if somebody is stressing out about a certain thing and it's actually interfering with their ability to make a decision, the action the leader can take is, maybe we need to get you some help through EAP. Maybe we need to give you some time off. Maybe we need to share the load so that that person feels cared for. And that's the difference between those terms. But I think it's important to know it. We don't expect leaders to know every type of approach around mental health, but it's really the caring.
Right, because we're not given a handy cheat sheet or a checklist about how to navigate those pieces as a leader. So, I really appreciate you kind of sharing about that, but also because we're talking about feelings and metrics and data, can you share a little bit about how the analytics have helped you present that to a leader?
Well, we look at the feelings index. We see about the percentage connecting and disconnecting as a whole. Then we go look at the roles. If there is a huge gap between role A and role B, between the team leaders and the manager and the senior leaders, we sit and talk about that. But to me, Will, the biggest plus for this assessment isn't so much just the metrics. It's the ability to say, we need to have a conversation about that. It's the ability to know that, hey, this is how they're feeling. They've expressed it. We need to be more transparent and kind of get to the bottom of, hey, can you guys tell me, what's going on, formally or informally? Generally, a lunch and learn, or the manager says, okay, off the record, we're just going to have a talk. It's to open the conversation so that they feel the three most important things I've ever learned. The employee needs to feel that leaders listened, that they cared about what they heard, and that they're taking an action around it. Those are really the three words that the coach needs to use to remember when they're talking to the leader or the person they're doing the debrief with. Let's listen. Let's make sure that they know that you care, and then be prepared to take an action. That's what compassion is about. Yeah. So if they can remember those three things, that's awesome. The metrics in the feelings index is what supports that conversation.
Absolutely. And then also their action plan, because it gives them a specific singular behavior to focus on for that particular 30 days. And that's not a big heavy lift for a leader, but it gives them focus and direction and helps you further clarify with the leader the next step.
The next step, right. And that's, of course, the one thing we do well is we have an action plan and we have a culture coach to walk that leader through the action plan. So that's why I love it.
Absolutely. Well, lots of great info today, Cynthia. I really appreciate you sharing. Any final thoughts?
I think that's all I can say about it today. Watch your feelings index and just remember the listen, care, action scenario. And I think our coaches will be fine, as will our clients.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Okay.